perfect wisdom, with the divisions of the Abhishamaya. Translated by Edward Conze. University of California Press, Berkeley, Los Angeles, London. Translation of the Sutra. Chapter 22. The first SAKRA chapter. The knowledge of the path. The eclipsing, the limbs of the knowledge of the path. The eclipsing of the gods. Thereupon all the great kings in this great trichliacosm were, together with many thousands of gods, present in that assembly. And so was SAKRA, chief of gods, and so were Yama gods, Tushita gods, Nirmanarati gods, Parinirmita Vasavardhans gods belonging to the retinue of Brahma, too. The Maha-Brahma gods, and the Paratava gods in this great trichliacosm, as well as the many Sudhavasakayika gods were present in that assembly. But the radiance from the bodies of all these gods, a reward for the deeds they had done in the past, did not approach the natural splendor of the Tathagata by 100th part, not 1000th part, too. It did not bear number, nor fraction, nor counting, nor similarity, nor comparison, nor resemblance. Compared with the splendor of these gods, the splendor of the Tathagata must be declared to be the best too, supreme and surpassing. Just as compared with the golden Jambu river, a reddish plowed field does not gleam, does not shine, does not appear bright. Just so compared with the Tathagata's natural splendor, the splendor of those gods, a reward for the deeds they had done in the past, did not gleam, did not shine, did not appear bright. But the Tathagata's splendor must be declared to be the best. Fitness. SAKRA. All these gods of this great trichliacosm, then, subhuti, have assembled here in order to hear from the then subhuti an explanation of perfect wisdom, because they want to hear his exposition of the perfection of wisdom. How, then, subhuti, should a bodhisattva, a great being, stand in the perfection of wisdom, and what is the perfection of wisdom of the bodhisattva, the great being? Definition of the object. Subhuti. Let me then, Kausika, through the Buddha's might, through the Buddha's sustaining power, explain to you the perfection of wisdom of the bodhisattvas, the great beings, and how a bodhisattva, a great being, should stand in perfect wisdom. And those gods who have not yet raised their thought to the supreme enlightenment, they should do so now. But those again who have entered on the certainty of definite salvation, i.e., the arhats who have reached their last birth and think that they have done with it all, they are unable to raise their thought to the supreme enlightenment. And why? The flood of birth and death hems them in. Pervasion. And yet I confirm them also, if they also will raise their thought to the supreme enlightenment. Own being shall not obstruct them when they adopt this wholesome idea. Activity. For among distinguished dharmas one should uphold the most distinguished ones. The knowledge of the paths which consist in the cognition of the path of the disciples. The definition of the 16 aspects based on the Four Truths, as a part of the path of the disciples. Therein, Kausika, what is the perfect wisdom of a bodhisattva, a great being? E2, 1a. The aspects of the truth of ill. Here the bodhisattva, the great being, with his production of thought associated with all knowledge, it tends to form, as impermanent, not self-quiet calm. E2, 1b. Aspects of the truth of origination, as a disease, a boil, a thorn, a misfortune. Aspects of the truth of ill and origination, taken separately, so as to arouse aversion as foreign, by its nature a disturbance, but so as to arouse dispassion as shaky and brittle, but so as to arouse cessation as fearful, troublesome, and a calamity, and that without taking them as a basis. And so with feeling, as impermanent, do come about the consciousness which is conditioned by the formative forces, the name and form which is conditioned by consciousness. It is thus that the origination of all this great mass of ill takes place, and he attends to that as impermanent, a calamity, without however taking it as a basis. Aspects of the truth of cessation. With the production of thought associated with all knowledge, he attends to stopping of the formative forces which results from the stopping of ignorance. And that is the absence of quiet, calm, isolated, empty, signless, wishless, and unaffected. Because of the stopping of the formative forces, there is the stopping of consciousness. It is thus that the stopping of this whole mass of ill takes place, and he attends to that as absence of self. Unaffected, but without taking it as a basis, and with his attentions associated with all knowledge. Aspects of truth of the path. The path, the correct method, progressive activity. That which allows to go forth to deliverance. Moreover, cow seeker, the bodhisattva, the great being, with the production of thought associated with all knowledge, develops the applications of mindfulness but without taking them as a basis. And so on, he develops the Buddha Dharmas in the same way. And so likewise he courses in the 6 perfections. Moreover, cow seeker, the bodhisattva, the great being who courses in perfect wisdom, understands Dharmas just with Dharma. When he thus by means of Dharma softens the Dharmas, moistens the perfects, and augments them, he contemplates without a self are all these Dharmas devoid of a self or anything belonging to a self. And why? For what is, on the part of the bodhisattva, the great being, the thought of a wholesome root that is not in touch with the thought of enlightenment? What is the thought of dedication that is not in touch with the thought of enlightenment or with the thought of the wholesome root? What is the thought of enlightenment that is not in touch with the thought of dedication? And why? That which is the thought of enlightenment that does not exist in the thought of dedication and cannot be apprehended in it. That which is the thought of dedication that does not exist in the thought of enlightenment and cannot be apprehended in it. This cow seeker is the perfection of wisdom of the bodhisattva, the great being, that he thus contemplates all dharmas and yet he does not settle down in any dharma or apprehends one. SAKRA. How, then? Subhuti is the thought of dedication not in touch with the thought of enlightenment. How is the thought of enlightenment not in touch with the thought of dedication? And how does in the thought of dedication the thought of enlightenment not exist, and cannot be apprehended in it? How does in the thought of enlightenment the thought of dedication not exist, and cannot be apprehended in it? Subhuti. What is the thought of dedication or of turning over? That is no thought. What is the thought of enlightenment? That is no thought. For no-thoughtness is not turned over into no-thoughtness. Thus what is no thought? That is unthinkable. And what is unthinkable? That is no thought, and therefore no-thoughtness is not turned over into no-thoughtness. This is the perfection of wisdom of the bodhisattva, the great being. The aids to penetration. Heat. The Lord. Well said, Subhuti. Well said by you, Subhuti, you who expound the perfection of wisdom to the bodhisattva, the great beings, and encourage them. Subhuti. Grateful should I be, O Lord, not ungrateful. For the Lord, in the past, when he coursed in the course of a bodhisattva, has in the presence of the tathagatas of the past been instructed and admonished in the 6 perfections by the disciples. They have been shown to him, he has been initiated into them, made to rejoice at them, has been encouraged by them, introduced to them, established in them. And in consequence the Lord has, after he had definitely become a bodhisattva, trained in the 6 perfections and fully known the supreme enlightenment. Just so, O Lord, we also should instruct and admonish the bodhisattvas, the great beings, in the 6 perfections, should show them to them, encourage and impel them, make them rejoice in them, introduce them to them and establish them in them. And by us also instructed and admonished, the bodhisattvas, the great beings, will fully know the supreme enlightenment. Subhuti then said to SAKRA, therefore then, cow seeker, listen and attend well. I will teach you how a bodhisattva should stand in perfect wisdom, i.e., how he should not stand in it. Form is empty of form. Feeling, the bodhisattva is empty of the bodhisattva. It is thus that the emptiness of form, and the emptiness of feelings, perception, impulses and consciousness, and the emptiness of the bodhisattva are not two nor divided. It is thus that the bodhisattva, the great being, should stand in perfect wisdom. Moreover, the eye is empty of the eye, the ear. It is thus that the emptiness of the eye, too, the emptiness of the bodhisattva are not two nor divided. It is thus that the bodhisattva, the great being, should stand in perfect wisdom. And so for the physical elements, the 12 links, the 6 perfections, the 18 kinds of emptiness, the applications of mindfulness. Moreover, concentration is empty of concentration. The dharani doors are empty of the dharani doors. The bodhisattva is empty of the bodhisattva. It is thus that, moreover, the disciple vehicle is empty of the disciple vehicle. Summits. SAKRA. How then, subhuti, should the bodhisattva, the great being, stand in perfect wisdom? Subhuti. Here the bodhisattva should not stand in forms, in feeling, by way of making,